Most people who start strength training as a New Year's resolution don't quit because they're lazy. They quit because they just don't know what to do next. They hit their first barrier or problem without a plan of how to adapt or modify around it. So that could be an exercise that might exacerbate some existing joint pain. They don't know if the muscle soreness they're feeling after exercise is a normal thing or not, so they tend to then shy away from the exercises and then fade out. Or they're just not sure if they're using the correct weight, doing the right number of sets or reps. And again, that confusion is a bit unmotivating, and then they eventually give up with it all. So today I'm going to address your questions and your concerns that you might have right now, or you might see as a problem coming up in the next few weeks as you're working through, so that when you hit those problems and barriers, you've got a bit of a plan to keep going instead of just stopping like most people do. So this is the monthly live Q&A episode for the Never Too Old to Lift podcast. My name is Chris. I am a physiotherapist, and I have a particular interest in helping older adults feel confident to start strength training. And I want this to be an opportunity for you to be able to ask me any questions that you might be having about those early stages. So whether you're just about to start and you've just got a few concerns and questions, or whether you've made a start and you just don't know kind of what the next step is, what the progression to moving forward is. So if you are watching this live, then please do use the chat feature within YouTube, and that will come up to me and I can bring your question up on screen. And if I can answer it straight away, I will. If I feel like I need a little bit more time to research it, then I will acknowledge your question, but I will come back in a future Q&A session. If you are watching this afterwards, so at the moment it's midday on Wednesday. If you are watching this later on, then you can still leave a question. So just go to the comment section if you're watching on YouTube and leave a question there. And again, I'll come back to that in another month. Or if you are listening to this on the audio podcast, you can do the same thing. You can jump over to YouTube, leave a question there. Or the simplest thing to do, you can send me an email. So it's chris@nevertooOldToLift.com. So that's chris@nevertooOldToLift.com. And the next Q&A session, they're always on the first Wednesday of every month. So the next one will be February the 4th at midday, and that's UK time. But talking of emails, that's what the first person who I've prepared a question for. So I'm going to go through a few questions that have been sent in since I've had a bit of a break over Christmas and New Year's. So there's a few that have come in that I wanted to go through, and like I say, any questions that you have if you're watching live. But this one, I'm just going to bring it a little bit bigger so you can see, but I'll read through it. It's a fairly lengthy email, but she's broken it down nicely into a few points, and I'm going to pick out the key points that we're going to discuss. But this is from someone who has made great progress starting strength training at home, but now feels a little bit stuck. And this is where she starts. I don't have the weights at home anymore to be able to move on, so I need to go to the gym. I do go to the gym all the time and walk and do some of the weights machines, but doing free weights at the gym paralyzes me. And she goes on to say that she at home is using 2 hand weights or dumbbells. They're £20 each, so that's a total of £40 because she's got one in each hand, and that's for squats. And at the gym, the next step up is £25. So again, one in each hand, that's £50. So that's a £10 increase, which is quite an increase. And that's what she says. That seems like way too much. So I thought maybe I should start using the barbell, but I feel very intimidated and don't know what I'm doing. Tried to get my son to help, but he thought I shouldn't be doing them to start with, so that's been a non-starter. Then I thought I would just use the weights machines, and she goes on a little bit extra there, but at the bottom she says, are the machines no good? I need direction. So firstly, I just wanted to say to this person, well done. I don't want to skip past the fact that you have made fantastic progress by turning up consistently at home, using the weights you've got, and got to the point where you've maxed out all your weights at home. And I didn't want to ignore that, because that's a big step. Most people haven't got that far. They've not kept the consistency, and they've sort of fallen off the wagon by now. So the fact you're ready and you're thinking about taking this into a gym is brilliant. You're right, you're going to need to increase the weights that you are using in order to continue building strength. And the first part of, so you can do that by buying more weights at home, but like you say, probably the easier option is to start taking these strength sessions into the gym. Now, I realise that the weights area of a gym for many people is very intimidating, overwhelming. There's a lot of fear that you might be judged by the people in there. In my experience, that's not the case. Everyone in there is a lot more friendly than you realise. The other thing to notice, that most people in the gym, whatever area of the gym, have the same fear. A lot of people are worried that everyone else is looking at them, and actually most people are just in that same position. They're too focused on what people think about them that they are worrying about anybody else, and then we're kind of stuck in this position where everyone's worried about it. I guarantee no one's going to bat an eyelid if you step into the gym or into that weights area of the gym. But I did want to give a bit of a strategy that I use with a lot of people. Is you have coming into this with ahead of most people, because you know what the exercises are, you know what weight you can do, you know how many reps and sets you've been doing. So if you can take the workout that you are already doing and take that into the weights area of the gym, so we're not trying any new equipment, we're not trying to increase the weight, you're doing everything exactly the same you've done at home, just in that weight section of a gym. The only thing we've changed is the environment. Everything else is the same. You know you can do it. You can lift the weight. I would start there, and don't worry for a few weeks about trying to change anything. It's just start getting familiar with being in that weights area of the gym, and you'll start to realise that it feels exactly the same as doing it at home. You just sort of crack on with everything you've been doing. And particularly as part of your email said you had a bit of a break over Christmas, you'll get to kind of build that base again. Then we can start to explore some of the other exercises and weights, or some of the other bits of equipment and the increase in the weight. So we've talked about it already, that is quite a jump up from the £20 to the £25 dumbbells. So it's a 25% increase on what you've already used, which is quite a significant jump up. You normally want to try and limit it to sort of 10% or less, but sometimes, like this situation, we don't have a choice. Some gyms may well have a £22.5 dumbbell, so it might be worth having a look there just and ask one of the gym staff to double check you've not missed anything there. But if not, given you've got a good base, what we can do, and I don't think you mentioned how many repetitions or sets that you've been doing with the £20 dumbbells, but say you were doing somewhere between 8 and 10 repetitions and reaching fatigue at that point with the £20 dumbbells. If you're jumping up to the £25 dumbbells, you could simply start with trying to aim with somewhere between 3 and 6 repetitions, and see how that feels, see how the body responds, and then you can start to, over time, hopefully increase the number of repetitions you do with it. But that's one strategy. I wanted to come on to the barbell and talk about why the barbell makes sense, because again, a lot of people are fearful of a bit of equipment they've never used before, and to many the barbell, which for anyone who's not familiar, it's the long bar that you put weights on the end. They're normally somewhere between 5 and 7 foot in length. They go on the squat racks, again another bit of equipment that a lot of people may not have used and don't know quite how to approach it. And it's not that barbells are dangerous, it's that they're unfamiliar and people don't want to take that first step. And there are a lot of other people, and younger people as well, that have this kind of societal narrative and impression that we should probably, older adults, particularly if they haven't used it before, should stick away from barbells because maybe it's not safe. And actually, I've worked with many older adults, many people into their 80s, and got them using barbells for the first time. We've not started there. We've gradually worked our way up, and that's been the next logical step for us to take. But they do amazing with it, and I'll come on to some of the reasons why it's the next logical step for a lot of people. So if you are using dumbbells and you're doing squats, normally people are holding the dumbbells down by their side. You'll start to get to a point where your grip becomes the limiting factor over the leg strength that we're actually aiming for. So because you have to hold the dumbbells by your side for the duration of the set that you're doing, you need to maintain that grip strength all the way through that set. And a lot of people get to a point where their grip just gives out, and that's the thing that stops them from able to do more repetitions. It's not their legs hitting muscular fatigue. And that's where a barbell comes in. So a bar will go across your back. You can rest it across the top of your back. And because it's just resting there and your hands are just stabilizing it behind you, don't have to, your grip's not involved at all. So now we are focused very much on what the legs can do and their ability to push more weight. There are some risks associated with a bar because it's harder to sort of bail out of the exercise. So for example, if you're doing it with dumbbells by your side and you get to the bottom of a squat and you can't get back up, you simply just drop the dumbbells or put the dumbbells on the floor and you can stand back up again. When a bar is on your back, it's very difficult to know what to do. So there are a few things you can do to make it less scary and a much safer experience. So the one I always like to do is put a bench or chair or a box behind you and you're sitting down, whether you're actually fully sitting or whether you're just tapping your bum to the chair and then back up again. But if you were to get to a point where you got to the lowest point and you couldn't get back up again, you simply sit down. If there's people in the gym, you just ask someone for help or just shout for help and someone will help you get back up again. That's the kind of the simplest option. The next option is some of the squat racks have safety arms that come out, which you can set at a height. So when you're in the lowest position of a squat or the lowest position you're comfortable to go with a squat, the arms are just set just underneath there. So if you can't get back up, you simply dip down a little bit lower and the arms take the weight of the bar and you can simply escape from underneath the bar. The other option is you have someone with you, is what we call a spotter, and they can help with that. And to start with, when you're just getting used to the bar, you're not trying to push yourself straight to muscular fatigue anyway. You're trying to get confident with the equipment first, which is what I wanted to come on to next. Was a women's Olympic bar weighs about 15 kilograms, and which is about approximately 30 pounds, almost double. And you've already said you're lifting 40 pounds with the dumbbells. So you know you can already do more than that women's Olympic bar. So we're actually reducing the weight for you to get comfortable with the bar. So I would give it a go. But what I would do if you're starting for the first time is find a member of staff in the gym who can talk you through setting up the squat rack safely and using the bar safely and checking it's in the right position. Many of the gym staff, and I've been there before, are sat in the gym and sometimes quite bored, and actually we welcome questions when people come and ask so that we have a chance to interact with someone and help someone and feel good that we're helping someone achieve something they've not done before. Don't feel that because you're not one of their clients that you can't go and ask a member of staff. That's what they're there for. They're there to help the members of the gym. So do go and ask them. They can help you with that. But yeah, I understand your son's fear of you using the bar. But unless there's any specific reason you haven't mentioned, then I would just say, yeah, start with it lightly. They are safe for you to use. They just need you to become familiar with it first. The one position they don't make sense is if you've got really limited shoulder mobility. Sometimes it's very difficult to get your hands behind the bar to stabilize it on your back. And in which case some gyms, and unfortunately not all gyms have them, but there's something called a safety bar, which is the same as an Olympic bar, but it's got two struts that come forwards over the shoulder and you hold the handles. So your arms can still by your sides or your upper arms by your side, and you just bend at the elbows and hold the handles, and then you can do the same squat action. So for anyone with shoulder mobility, if your gym's got a safety bar, they're fantastic. If not, it might be you have to consider something else. Again, not every gym's got one, but a weighted vest can be a really good option, because you can have a weighted vest. Some of them are kind of ones with sandbags, and they go on and they're normally up to about 20 kilograms in weight. Some of them have almost like a pole coming out the front and back, and you can slide weight plates on and then screw those on and secure them. But you can have some weight on your chest and back, and then you can have the dumbbells in your side, and that's another way to increase weight without being limited by your grip strength. And then the last thing I want to come on to are, you mentioned about machines, and are machine weights good, or should they be avoided? And machine weights are fantastic for anyone who's at beginner stages at the gym. You mentioned that sometimes you have to use more machine weights because they only target specific muscles, whereas the free weights target movement patterns that utilize multiple muscle groups. There are actually machines that do use multiple muscle groups in the same way that those compound lifts do. So the first example is leg press. The leg press is fantastic because it's effectively a squat. You're just in a safe, secure position as you're doing it. There's chest press machines where you're kind of sat upright and then you push two levers away from you that are connected to a stack of weight plates. And that way you don't have to lay on your back. There's no risk of you getting stuck underneath the bar, or if you're doing it with dumbbells and you can't get back up again, you haven't got to do that awkward twist and drop them down to the floor. The machine will just catch the weight and you can just release from there. Shoulder press machines, again, where you're sat in a machine and then you're pushing up vertically up to the ceiling and back down again. They will only let you follow a set path. They don't deviate forwards and backwards, and they can feel really safe to be able to push a little bit harder with the weights. Whereas if you're using heavier dumbbells, you kind of get to that position where you might not feel you've got stability and you worry about your shoulder falling backwards and suddenly kind of jerking at the shoulder and causing an irritation or pain. So those machines can be fantastic. There are ones out there that do replicate the same type of functional movement patterns that the free weights do. But equally, there are some out there that just isolate individual muscles, and they're fine to do as well. They're still great to work through, but you do have to do more exercises to cover the majority of the body. So if machine weights are your way of feeling you can make more gradual progressions of weight and feel safer doing so, then that's where I would start. But I would urge you at some point to come back to the free weights and the functional movement patterns, because we want to train the body to stabilize itself rather than rely on taking away the stability aspects or the stability challenge and just working on the strength. We want to have kind of both combined eventually, but safety is the main thing at the beginner stages. So I think that's covered majority of your question there. If you do have any follow-on questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Again, if you are watching this live and you want to ask me any questions off the back of this, then do ask live or leave a comment if you're watching this later on. I just wanted to take the opportunity to let you know about an announcement I made yesterday to my email list, that the Stronger for Life course that I have is currently, I announced there's a January offer from yesterday up until the end of Sunday. So that's Sunday the 11th of January at midnight, the offer will end. You can join now for 40% off. So what the course is, it's a combination of sort of three elements. It's a course element, it's a coaching element, and it's a community element. So the course is bite-sized videos that are split into 7 different modules. And effectively, you're going to learn how to create your own strength training program around your current ability level and around any limitations that you might have. And so at the end of it, you'll feel confident to create that program, confident to know how to progress safely, but also confident to know how to adapt and modify around any of these barriers or challenges that we talked about that might crop up. And rather than just sort of feeling lost and stuck and stopping, you'll have an idea of how you can work around those. Then we come into the coaching element. So every week there's a weekly group coaching call with me via Zoom. So I get to sort of see you and we have a discussion and a chat about any questions that you might have, any sticking points you've hit and you're not sure and you need help coming up with a strategy to work around it. And then that brings us on to community element. You'll get to learn more about the others that are doing the course and people who started at the same time as you or might just be a few steps ahead of you. And you get to share questions with each other. You get to celebrate each other's wins, and you just generally get to support each other, and maybe even hold each other accountable for the next week. And they have become a bit of an accountability call as well. And as part of the community, you also get access to a private Facebook group where you can share the same things. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, you can find out more by going to nevertoldtolift.com/course. If you look at it and you like the look of it, then I say at the moment it's 40% off. It should have already applied the discount as you go to that link. But if not, you can use the discount code JAN26. So it's JAN26. And again, that's 40% off. So you've got two options. Either a one-time payment, which would normally be $248, is down to £148.80, or you can pay via a 4-month payment plan. So instead of $64.99 a month, it would be $34.99 a month for 4 months. Again, all that information is at nevertoldtolift.com/course, and all that will be in the description or the show notes. So again, I've got a few other questions that have come in the last few weeks. So the next one's probably quite relevant to several people listening. They've said, I took 3 weeks off over the holidays. Should I go back to the weights I was using before or start with something lighter? So, I mean, the short answer is I would start with something lighter, but I'll elaborate on that in the sense that the mistake I see a lot of people make is that they try and catch up for lost time. They saw they were making great progress up until the point just before sort of mid-December, just before Christmas started, and thought they had the best intentions, but obviously life gets in the way and it's ended up being a prolonged break of 2 or 3 weeks. And it doesn't feel like a huge gap. And what people feel like they need to do is catch up for the time they've missed. So they jump straight back in at the same weight, trying to work at the same intensity, or some people even actually try and add a bit of weight to feel like they're taking a bit of progression again because they've missed that feeling of progressing. And 9 times out of 10, you'll probably get away with it and you'll feel okay. The chances are, though, there may be a bit of deconditioning in that time where your muscles got ever so slightly weaker, you feel a bit more sluggish, your brain has forgotten a bit of the fluency of doing the exercises. It's not as efficient as it once might have been a few weeks back. And there is that risk that you might cause yourself an injury. And if you do, you're now going to need a month plus off, as opposed to just the 3 weeks that we've missed. So I would start with about 70 to 80% of the previous weight that you're using. If you've had a bit more of a break, maybe bring it down to 50%. And I would see this first workout as an assessment, really. It's testing the water, doing the workout. You're not going to be pushing to muscular fatigue. You're not trying to make it a workout like it felt in the sense of the last one. It's probably going to feel slightly easier. But you're seeing how the body responds over the next 24, 48 hours. If the body responds fine, then next time add a bit more weight. And over 2 or 3 workouts, I get back to the point where you were before. So it won't take long. You won't have lost much in that time. And the concept of muscle memory does exist. So although it might not feel that fluent straight away, within 2 or 3 sessions back, your brain will have recognized again exactly what you're asking it to do, and you'll be kind of back at that position within 2 or 3 sessions. And that might be, depending on how many times a week you go, within a week or 2. And yeah, as summary there, I'd rather you start too light than go too heavy thinking you're progressing and end up injured. So next question, let me hide that one there, is Are adjustable dumbbells worth the investment, or should I buy multiple fixed weight pairs? I'm setting up a home gym on a budget. So for anyone who's not sure what they mean by adjustable dumbbells, I just thought I'd take a second to talk about them there. So if you imagine you go to the gym, you've normally got different pairs of dumbbells laid out on racks. So one of them might weigh 2.5 kilograms, the next one might weigh 5 kilograms, then it goes to 7.5, etc. They go up in different intervals, but you pick up one pair of dumbbells, do your exercise and put them back. And if your next exercise you need a different weight, you just pick up another set and you do those. At the gym, that's easy. They've got lots of space. They've got the big racks with lots of different options, and it's an easy thing to do at the gym. At home, if you want to set up the same kind of sort of setup where you've got lots of these fixed weight pairs, one, it soon adds up in terms of costs having lots of different weights or pairs of dumbbells at home. You're going to need the space to store them, and for a lot of people that means they just lay them out in pairs on the floor, which doesn't look great, or you've then got to buy a rack for them to fit them in as well, which then adds to the cost of buying them. To save money, people who go down the fixed weight or fixed pairs route end up having bigger intervals in between the pairs. So instead of buying, say, a 1 kilogram pair, 2 kilogram pair, 3 kilogram pair, all the way up to 10, they might take the 1 kilograms, 4 kilograms, 7 kilograms, and then maybe 10. So they're only buying 4. So as we talked about earlier with the question at the start that came in by email, we don't really want to have big increases of 25-30% jumps up in weight. We want to try and keep it down at sort of 10% chunks if we can as we're making progress. So the risk is by only having fewer pairs, you're going to take too big a jump up and you're going to potentially cause yourself an injury. So the question here is, should we go for the adjustable dumbbells? And so the adjustable ones, there's a couple of options here. So the first, and I've brought up a picture up on screen if you're watching on YouTube, but if you're on the audio podcast, I'll explain it now. But it's a bar that's a shorter bar, so it's not like those barbells I talked about. It's a much shorter bar that you slide weight plates on and off in the same way. And there's these one here, it's a collar that you screw on to secure those plates in position. Some have a spring that you squeeze, it kind of opens up the hole that you slide it onto the end of the bar, and then as you let go, it tightens up around the bar, again securing those weight plates in position so they don't fall off. Most of the time, the plates that you can get that slide on and off might weigh 2 kilograms, they might weigh 1 kilogram, and sometimes you have some that go up to kind of 5 kilograms plus, depending on kind of the set that you've bought. So you can be very varied with the amount of weight that goes on that bar, which is what the advantage of these are, is that just with one set of dumbbells, and that's just the bar in each hand, you could just use a bar, so you've got very small weight there. If you just put the 1 kilogram on each side, or some even go down to half a kilogram, you can then just do very small incremental changes without taking those big 25 or 30% jumps up in weight, and therefore less likely to cause yourself an injury. The cons, or the downside to these adjustable dumbbells, is that if you're doing one exercise and then for the next exercise you need a completely different weight, or you found an exercise on one set very easy and you want to add a little bit of weight to the next set, it can be a bit of a faff having to unscrew both the collars on both the dumbbells. So you've then got kind of 4 collars to unscrew or slide off, and then you've got to put the weight plates on, and then you've got to re-secure them. And then particularly if you then go back to a different exercise, you then got to do the whole system over again. So it does take time to change the weight on these adjustable dumbbells. Equally, when the plates that aren't on the bar have to be stored somewhere, and they end up again normally in a pile on the floor, and it doesn't look that great or tidy. So that's kind of some of the downsides to it. is another option or different type of adjustable dumbbell that you can get, which, and again, I've brought a picture up on screen. There's various different companies that do these. The ones that I've got in the clinic are these Bowflex adjustable dumbbells. So they kind of sit in a housing unit, and the bar slides into these weight plates, and then you turn a dial on the end, and you can select a particular weight. So say we picked 4 kilograms. As you pick the bar back up again, it holds 4 kilograms worth of weight on the sides, or factoring in the weight of the bar as well. But yeah, as you lift it up, you've got 4 kilograms there. And if you put the weight back into the housing unit, turn the dial to say 7 kilograms, you pick that up, and within seconds, you've got another weight of it, or the same dumbbell but with a different weight. And then you can put it back again, and you can do it within seconds. So they are much easier to use. The weight plates, when they're not in use, are just housed within that housing unit. So again, it looks very neat and tidy. You save a lot of time. However, these are much more expensive. We're talking a few, I think, but somewhere, depending on the weight it goes up to, per dumbbell, you might be looking somewhere between 100 and 200 pounds. Whereas you could get a set of the adjustable dumbbells where you're sliding the plates on and then securing them on with the collars. I think you can normally get a set that goes up to 20 or 30 kilograms for around 60 or 70 pounds. I did have a look this morning. There is a set for up to 20 kilograms for, I think, £36 on offer. So it said it's a limited time offer. So if you just search adjustable dumbbells, you can normally find those on Amazon. I do have a link in the description for some of the recommended equipment I have. So do take a look there, and you might find some of the deals on there. But yeah, I tend to always suggest adjustable dumbbells over fixed for those reasons. And if you've got the money, I would go for something like Bowflex or Muscle Squad or another brand that have great adjustable dumbbells where you're just turning a dial and picking up the weight. But I realise that's and this person here has said they're on a budget, so it's probably going to be those adjustable dumbbells where you can change the collars, because they're still going to be cheaper than buying multiple sets of fixed weight pairs. And if you get to a point where you're maxed out, you can always buy additional weight plates to put on there as well when you are ready to progress. Hopefully that's helped there. I'll put in the description, there's a link to a video that I've made all about this in a lot more detail, called Best Dumbbells for Me. And I will talk you through and show you what I mean by all of these, and just how quick it is I could sort of compare the speed of changing weights on those adjustable dumbbells with the collars versus the Bowflex ones. So again, do have a look in the description below. And then the last question I've had come in is it better to do full body workouts 2 to 3 times per week, or split them into upper lower body days? Now, again, short answer, I would go for full body 2 to 3 times a week, but I'll go into why that is. So what we really want to do when we're trying to build muscle strength, particularly as a beginner, but we want to try and work each major muscle group in the body 2 to 3 times per week to build strength. The more kind of touch points you have or the stimulus those muscles get per week, the more chance they have in increasing in size. If you're only doing but if you're doing 2 to 3 times per week, having a full body that you do, so most people I suggest start with twice a week. Ideally, we do want to get to 3 times per week, but if you start at twice a week, it's much better than nothing, and it's not too overwhelming that if you're trying to keep up that 3 a week cadence, having not been there before, it's easier to drop off. And if you only do 2, it feels like a failure because you haven't hit the 3rd. So you just give up with it in total. So I'd say aim for 2 a week. And if you're quite new to this, there's a chance that life is going to get in the way, and you might on 1 week miss a week or miss 1 workout. If you're doing full body on both days, you still had 1 day where you worked the whole body, and you've just missed the second workout. If you did 2 workouts and one was a lower body day and the other was an upper body day, and you miss the, say, upper body day workout, you're now not going to do that again till the following week. So you've effectively had almost like a 2-week gap since the upper body was challenged, and therefore it's less likely to build strength if you have those gaps in there. Whereas, say, a full body workout is a lot more forgiving in terms of if you do find there's a session that you've missed. If you were going to the gym more than 4 days a week, then it makes sense to start splitting to upper and lower body workouts. Or some people do leg day, a push day, and a pull day as another type of split. And the reason people tend to do this is because when you are pushing your muscles to fatigue and you're trying to challenge those muscle groups, you really want to have a rest day in between. So that would be, if you work the legs on the Monday, the Tuesday should really be a rest. The legs should be rested before you might do that again on the Wednesday or Thursday. Now, for someone who wants to go to the gym more than 4 times a week, what you could do is do a leg day, and then whilst your legs are resting, you could do an upper body day or just a push day where you're just working the push muscle groups. And then on the next day, whilst your legs and your push muscles are still resting, you could work the pull muscle group. And then you can then go back in at the leg day on the next day. So that's where it makes a bit more sense, is where you, because if you did full body every single day, you haven't had the rest days where the muscles are actually recovering, and actually you're probably going to end up breaking down the muscles more and end up weaker rather than stronger. Whereas if you're only going 2-3 times a week, the caveat to that would be you want to do, ideally, if you're saying do 3 days a week, do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So you've got those days in between. If the only option you have to you is to do a Monday and Tuesday to fit your 2 days a week in because you can't do anything else because of your schedule, then you might do an upper body, lower body day. But generally, if you've got that option to space it out, I would go with the full body every time. And what I would suggest in those 2 full body workouts is to pick 4 or 5 exercises per session, and you're looking to cover the main movement patterns. And I regularly talk about these functional movement patterns, and there's 7 of them I try and target. There's squat, hip hinge, lunge, push, pull, rotation of the body, trunk rotation, and it's gait or carry. So you're kind of carrying a weight. So we call it like suitcase carry if you're holding a weight in one arm and walking across a room and back. Some people call it farmer's carry if you're doing it with a weight in both hands. So if over the 2 workouts you can cover all of those movement patterns, and you can maybe add in a couple of isolation exercises as well, but you're going to cover all the major muscle groups a couple of times each week, which is exactly what we're after. And then you're just going to focus on progressing that with those. And then once you're comfortable with those and pushing to fatigue, and you're happy with the 2 to 3 times a week, and you feel like you want to progress in terms of frequency, that's when you might want to consider splitting into the upper body, lower body. But for starting, for most of you listening, and for those in the beginner stages, stick to full body 2 to 3 times a week with those 4 to 5 exercises in each session. So that's it for the moment. So what I'll do, if there's any other questions for anyone watching live, please do use the chat feature to ask those questions. And I'm just going to spend 2 minutes just explaining about the free ebook that I have that you might be interested in. It's going to help you guide through building your own workout program. And that's nevertooltoldtolift.com/ebook. And again, that link is in the description below, but that's completely free to download, and that will kind of help get you started. But if you did feel like you did want a bit more support and you wanted that accountability and the coaching alongside that, then just a reminder that my Stronger for Life course is on offer at the moment. So it's 40% off. So to learn more about that, it's nevertooltoldtolift.com/course. Mentioned already, but the next live Q&A session will be on Wednesday, the 4th of February at midday, and that's UK time. So if you've got any questions between now and then, please do leave those in the chat. Or if you want to ask me via email, send me an email, and it's chris@nevertooldtolift.com. And then I'll be back next Wednesday with another episode, and it's going to be all the highlights of the interviews I had last year, and you'll see all the common themes between all those interviews, common suggestions that they had, and the barriers and the challenges they faced. And it's a really inspiring episode, so don't miss that one. So that's going to be released next Wednesday. But for now, I hope you have a great week, and I will see you then.